Have you ever been one call away from a completely different life? If so, you may feel like a college football player. The draft is a great opportunity for the NFL teams and the college football players, and it gives players a chance of a lifetime. If you watch the draft on TV, you would know what I mean when this draft is truly life-changing, as many players view it as a way to get out of the rat race. The most important thing for fans, however, is who their team picks. The picks usually fill weak spots on the team, or sometimes the team will draft a player to fill or to develop into a star a few years later. Since we're Packer fans, we should probably be upset with this year's draft, right? Or should we? I'm Ben Mantufel, and the next 8 to 10 minutes, I would like to tell you guys a little bit about this year's Packer draft class. As Packer fans, we should be used to having late first-round draft picks, and this year was no exception. This year, we headed into the draft with pick number 30, but the Dolphins traded pick number 26 for pick number 30 and pick 136. So with that, pick number 26, we selected Jordan Love, a 6'4", 225-pound quarterback with a smooth throwing motion. He was overlooked in high school because he was a late bloomer, but he did play 3 years at Utah State and broke several records while doing so. Pick number 62 was A.J. Dillon, a running back out of Boston College. He was 6 feet tall, 247 pounds, and ran a 4.53 40-yard dash, which is pretty solid for a running back. He's mostly a power running back, and can handle heavy workloads and wear down defenses. Josiah DeUgara was our third-round pick at number 94 overall, and played at Cincinnati, and was mostly known for blocking and his ability to catch. We lost our fourth-round draft pick to the Dolphins when we traded up to pick 26. So jumping right to round 5 at pick number 175 overall, we went with Kamal Martin from Minnesota, and he was an inside linebacker. He wraps up well, but he has to be more efficient in the passing game. With the 192nd pick, the Packers selected John Runyon Jr. in the 6th round. He is the son of John Runyon, a former Pro Bowl in the NFL, and stands at 6'4", 306 pounds. He's intelligent, but he has shorter arms than average, which can be a problem in the NFL. We had 2 more picks in the 6th round, and with that we added 2 more offensive linemen. Jake Hansen from Oregon was picked 208, and Simon Stepaniak from Indiana was picked 209. Both are about 6'4" and a little over 300 pounds. Jake Hansen is less powerful and relies more on his hands, whereas Simon Stepaniak is the opposite and relies more on his power. The Packers also had 2 7th-round draft picks. The first one, they chose Vernon Scott at pick 236 overall, a safety from TCU. He has good speed, and he has experience covering the slot receiver, but other than that, he's average at most things. The last pick for the Packers was pick number 242 overall, and we selected Jonathan Garvin. He's an edge rusher from Miami, and he's a natural rusher with a lot of potential, but he's inconsistent and lacks effort. Coming into the draft, the Packers wanted skill players on the offensive side. After going strong defense for the last few years in the draft and in free agency last year, it was clear to see that they wanted to give Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur some offensive weapons. Out of 9 players drafted, 6 were offensive and 3 were skill players. The first 3 picks went to skill position players. Jordan Love, the first pick, was selected in hopes that he will replace Aaron Rodgers one day. Love flew under the radar for the most part because he played at a smaller school in Utah State, but he did still draw comparisons to quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes. A.J. Dillon was our second skill player drafted. This is a good pick because of our current running back scenario. So we have 2 running backs right now, Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, and they're both on contract years, which means we probably will only be able to sign one of them. Bringing A.J. Dillon in is nice because now we have a third running back to bounce off of. The last skill player drafted was Josiah DeUgara. He plays tight end and fullback, and he's the closest thing the Packers got to a receiver. This was a good pick, however, because we just got rid of a fullback and we're pretty low on tight ends as well. Last year the Packers made it to the NFC Championship, only to get routed by the 49ers and their amazing defensive front 7. This was probably one of the reasons why we drafted 3 offensive linemen in this year's draft, and I see this as a good move because it added depth and young players. While it is unlikely that any of these three players will pop their first year, it's always good to have depth on the O-line. The defense was relatively untouched during the draft after adding only 3 players, 2 of which were added in the 7th round. The 4th rounder, Kamal Martin, was added as a replacement for Blake Martinez. Adding a safety and an edge rusher for depth in the 7th round was a good choice. We have solid players at those positions already, but depth is always a good thing. Overall, the Packers filled every hole I expected them to, except they drafted 0 receivers. The receiver depth chart goes as follows for the Packers: Devontae Adams, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Geronimo Allison, Allen Lazard, and Jake Kumaro. I expected the Packers to get a wide receiver or 2, considering this was one of the best wide receiver classes in the modern era. If I was in charge, my first priority would be to get another wide receiver alongside Devontae Adams. Without trading up for a receiver, we would have been able to get receivers like T. Higgins from Clemson, Michael Pittman Jr. from USC, and KJ Hamler from Penn State. With trading up, we would have been able to get receivers like Justin Jefferson from LSU or Jalen Reagor from TCU. To put this into perspective, a record 13 receivers were selected in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft. This just kind of goes to show you how deep the receiving class was in this year's draft. The most controversial of all picks was Jordan Love. Aaron Rodgers still has 4 years left on his contract, which means either Love will sit behind Aaron Rodgers for 4 years, or Rodgers is going to be leaving sooner than we thought. The pick came as a surprise to many. Many people thought Rodgers still had several good years left in him. Also, to put this into perspective, Tom Brady is 42, Drew Brees is 41, Aaron Rodgers is only 36. A lot of people compared the Rodgers-Love scenario to the Favre-Rodgers scenario. In 2005, Brett Favre was 35 years old, and the Packers selected Aaron Rodgers 24th overall. In 2020, Rodgers is 36, and the Packers selected Jordan Love at 26 overall. The difference is that Aaron Rodgers dropped to the 24th pick, whereas he was originally supposed to be a top 10 pick and even vying for the number 1 overall pick. Whereas we traded up to get Jordan Love from the 30th to the 26th pick, whereas he probably would have gone in the 2nd or 3rd round had we not drafted him. The 2020 Packers draft was filled with surprises, for better or worse, and had a few interesting moves. They took a huge gamble on Jordan Love, and I, for one, hope it pays off one day. The theme for the draft seemed like they were planning for the future, which seems pretty odd, considering they have a prime Aaron Rodgers for a few more years. But at the end of the day, GM Brian Gutekunst is pretty bright, and I trust him. Thank you for letting me inform you about the 2020 Packers draft over the last several minutes.